Welcome to the Invincible Innovation Show, the podcast for changemakers. Each week, I talk to the most fascinating entrepreneurs and innovation leaders about innovation, strategy, and design. Hey everyone, great to see you. And the question we're here to ask is, how could we build a strong, powerful innovation culture? Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live. I'm Mazor, Kario, Innovation and Value Creation Expert, and I'll be your host. And today with me, I have Henrik Karlsen. Great to see you.
Great
so
to see you.
So happy to see you here.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So Henrik is the founder and innovation manager at Blue Trampoline. Great to see you.
Great to see
We're
you.
We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're much invited to join the discussion and talk with us. And we can just start. So what is the thing that you mentioned about the culture? What is the most important aspect of the innovation culture?
Good question, because culture is one of those soft things that's really difficult to get your hands about. So we kind of like to define it as the behavior and the habits, the things you do. And are considered the right ones and the right things to do in your company. So we would actually rather talk about, we think culture is defined by the way you act and the behavior and the things you think are important. And in order to promote that behavior, that innovative, creative behavior we want to do, we think we need three things in companies. We need, of course, the processes, the tools, and the skills of creative people. We actually think many companies have already invested in that, and they are actually pretty good in that. There's been written, I think there's 60,000 books out currently on innovation processes and how to innovate. And you had one out recently too, Eddie, and I bought it. I haven't read it yet, but I look forward to it.
You should. It's 60,001 right now.
60,001, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's actually quite a lot of understanding what we need to do from a process point of view. But innovation and behavior is so much more than that, because there are sponsors of processes and buyers of behaviors and skills and stuff. So there are two things we also need to do in order to drive the behavior that could give us an innovation culture. And we still need these, we call it future-based visions and strategies for innovation. What is it actually we want to achieve through innovation? We want to have the vision, we want to have the strategy, we want to have like specific themes or arenas which we want to explore and invest in. And our latest data suggests actually that it's only 1/4 of all companies who have that.
A vision for the future of the
a vision and a strategy for innovation, like an innovation strategy. 75% do not have that. So the question comes, in order when we want to have this innovative behavior, we have the processes and we have the tools, and we all read Osterwalder's books and all that, and they are great. But the question is, if we don't put it into a strategic context, what do we need them for? What is actually the job to be done with innovation? So we need to have that. And then, of course, we also need to have some kind of organizational infrastructure in order to make it easy actually to submit ideas, to get funding for ideas, to prioritize ideas, to make decisions. So we want to have like sufficient funding for innovation. We want to have some leaders who take ownership for it, and we want to have some quick decision processes as well. Yeah. Because if you don't have a direction about if we were a car, if the car was the innovation team and we want to go somewhere, we don't know where to go, and we don't even have the fuel to go there, we would not really go that far. But that's actually what happens in many big companies, particular when we talk about innovation. We had too many senior leaders in both private and public companies saying that, we expect our people to be innovative. But the question is actually also, okay, so what can we actually expect the other way around by the leaders of those companies?
Yeah, of course.
And it's a big problem, because I think it's KPMG who had some research out recently that 74% of all CEOs, they actually fear that their current business model will be disrupted by either new technologies.
But what do they do? So the question is, what do you do with this fear? Will they act upon it or not? Like what you said about the infrastructures is related to incentivization. Are the CEOs incentivized, to innovate? And what is like the board of directors saying? Most of them are more grown up. So it's like, I think on average, they're 60 years old on the board of directors. So what do they see as, and how do you really create this top-down thing on innovation?
And we really need them to take more responsibility and invest more of their personal time in this agenda. And we can actually see 80% of them, they spend less than 10% of their own time on the innovation agenda, because it's not really the skill set, it's not the toolbox they learned when they went to school. So the big question is really, how can we make organizations just as innovative and creative as the people working in them? Because too much is going to waste. Really, so back to your questions. We pretty much have our hands around the processes, tools, and skills, but we still need the direction where we want to go with innovation and the infrastructure actually to have some roads where the cars can drive on, if we should be in that philosophy. And it starts with leadership, I guess.
I agree. What you said about the CEO makes really sense, because if 80% of them invest only 10% of their time, it's related to what they're expected to do. They're incentivized by the revenue per quarter. So they're not looking ahead. They're looking to currently the operational situation and what can they do and make more sales, actually. So this is what they're focused on, and this is how they're incentivized to work. So how can we make that different, right?
Yeah, and we don't say it's wrong. Of course, they should exploit what they have and get as much value, capture as much value from that. But if you're an airplane industry or run an airline, it's not really about how can we get even more routes now, because Zoom pretty much disrupted the industry. And it's more exploration now than an exploitation, and the behaviors and the considerations about what is right and wrong behavior in situations like this does not support innovation, because it's too intangible. It's still quite an immature discipline in most large and established companies, and we really need to do something about that fast.
I understand what you're saying. So what are the biggest obstacles to innovation as you see it?
I would say bureaucracy. If you think about it, we since 1908, when Henry Ford designed the Ford T, we pretty much spent more than 100 years now making big organizations 99% fit for exploitation. And these organizations, the Henry Ford was the right way to do it, because that allowed us to do things at large scale, and we do it efficiently, and et cetera, et cetera. But it was different times 100 years ago. What was the right solution on how to organize a company at that time is not necessarily the right way to do it today, but it's a legacy we still have. Even 50 years ago, I think it was in the late 70s, there was a guy called Herbert Simon. He even won a Nobel Prize in economics, and his main message was really that companies are first and foremost designed for exploitation, and they should do almost whatever they can in order to eliminate risk and uncertainty. And innovation is actually about risk and uncertainty. And I agree we should do whatever we can to de-risk and all that, but there needs to be an element of risk taking as well in companies. And we spent 50 years in that, and it's basically formed the way we think. It's formed the way we design organizations, how we make decisions, how we set goals and KPIs, and on what basis we hire and promote and fire people. It's very seldom, actually, not very often, that you talk to companies. They all say that we need to be innovative and all that, but when we talk about how do you actually make sure that you consider innovation and creativity when you hire people, They don't really. It's very, very few. They still talk about what did you achieve from a performance point of view in your last job. Google is probably one of the few who does, but it's not a lot, really. So we really have spent more than 100 years now trying to fine-tune the way Henry thought of as what an ideal organization looked like, and even though it's very, very good for exploitation, it's not really that good for non-standard situations as we are in now. And it's also why we see so many reorgs all the time, because now we redesign the organization so it's fit to the time we are in right now. And then there comes a pandemic. Now we do another one. And now hopefully there will come a vaccine soon. Now we do a third one. And before we finish, the times has changed again. I'll just reach out for a book here, Adi.
Sure.
So when I did my MBA, I think I finished about 7 years ago. This book, it's called MBA Management Models. It's a very good book, and it was probably the book I used most doing my 3 years of study at my MBA. It's 225 pages. There's not a single one dealing with creativity or innovation. So wonder what we think. What would the solution to disruption be? That would probably be look in the traditional strategic models, and we use tools that are really designed for exploitation and execution. We use those to do exploration and innovation, and it's not working. It's like painting a wall with a screwdriver.
I totally agree. And when you think it's not only exploitation, it's for a specific kind of company. If you're a manufacturer, if you're a factory, it's really different than a software company, or the technology that we have right now is so different, and the way the organizations in related to technology are built, and the changes are much, much faster. And therefore, when you go into the virtual world, to the software world, where most of the money right now is in, I would say that in innovation for sure. So I would say that what you need to think about is not how the factories or the big manufacturing publishing companies were working right now. You need to understand differently. And the advantage of these new companies is that they know how to work in an unknown, uncertain situation. And right now we have a very unknown, uncertain situation, change, which is so fast and so big, global. And if the companies don't handle this unknown, it's like they should have done it before, because the markets changed, the clients changed, everything around them changed, so they needed to change. But right now, because it's so fast and so like global, they cannot really run away from it and say, okay, we'll do that and it will pass on. It will not.
It's too slow, and it's actually, to an extent, I would not go that far as some of the most extreme in this area, where they say they actually doubt that large organizations and these legacy organizations, that they can actually solve any big problems. Even though everybody talks about jobs to be done, they cannot do it, because we have an idea, we need to test it on customers. We cannot get access to customers because these are in the ownership of the sales team, and they will not allow it, and all that. It's really, really a big problem. And even though lots of these ways of organizing are designed in the software industry, where you have worked quite a lot as well, I think they're applicable for many types of innovation. We actually see we're working with the mayor's office at the moment in one of the biggest towns in Denmark, and they're actually trying to implement these ways of thinking. And these are quite bureaucratic organizations, but they're actually starting to experimenting, and we can see ideas who's been in the organization for 1, 2, or 3 years are actually now getting momentum, and in a week they can go further than they've done in the last year. So of course they should not probably 100% looks like they do in the software industry, but there are definitely elements that we can
sure.
we can use.
Yeah, I think that I've been 20 years in technology and technological companies, but I think that the way they see things is very, like we need to be up to date all the time. So we need to be flexible, and the flexibility is something that any organization needs. It's not only the fact that they're working on software. So of course it's needed. So we started to talk about the change with COVID. So how do you see innovation affected by COVID?
I think a lot of companies are quite worried now, and they have. We saw some good news. I think it was day before yesterday from Pfizer about some potential vaccine results that looks great. Yeah. Thanks for that. But we saw in the beginning, we have actually seen cases of companies we followed in the media where we thought, okay, we had 3 or 4 or 5 patterns in those that would be mostly disrupted by the COVID. And we actually saw some of them saying that we think in a few months this will all be over and we will be back to normal. And how they actually changed that argument month to month, and now they're actually close to bankruptcy. And these were very strong companies recently. And it's because of bureaucracy, because they cannot change. But what we have seen is we actually did a survey recently, not a very big one. I think it was 42 companies involved in it, and 67% of them said that innovation had become a more important topic during the pandemic, and for obvious reasons, I think. But what we also learned was that 3 out of 4 said at the same time that it has become much more difficult to get resources and funding for ideas. So even though, and I guess that's the lack of innovation culture again, the need for it goes up, but the opportunities goes down, and because where's the budget, who should decide and who should allocate and all that.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's like doing an insurance. You're doing innovation all the time, and when the market will change, and it will surely change. Right now it's a big change, but it will surely change. We'll be prepared. So we don't need to run after our competitors. We need to lead the market. And if you're not doing it in regular time, right now, you might be too late, to get everything ready for that.
Exactly. And it's basically about focusing on your customers and your users instead of your competitors, because they're being disrupted too.
Sure.
And we
see which most companies don't think. They think about how to control the market, how to handle the competitors, how to have more customers, how to reach to other countries. They're not thinking about these specific people that they're building for. In many cases, in big companies, they're 90% of the company never met a client. Maybe only sales and support. You see that. So how can they relate to someone and really understand that he's changing? Yeah. And they don't know that.
They don't know that. We can see in terms of types of innovation, we can see during the pandemic that we see more focus on business model innovation, and compared to the traditional R&D types of innovation. At the moment, we're working with a customer. They had relied very much on personal sales, like I go to Tel Aviv, we sit around the table and we get to know each other that way, and they cannot do that anymore. How do they design a new channel in order to sell and maintain relationship? When we go back to the financial crisis in 2008, we see some of the same patterns, because we saw the companies who invested in innovation prior to the financial crisis also did it during the crisis and after the crisis. And the ones who didn't before the crisis, because they were too busy exploiting and earning money, in 2008, they didn't invest in innovation either, because now they were too busy fixing problems and didn't have money to invest in innovation. So again, it's back to the mindset and the culture in the company and about how they think it. We think it's more severe this time, actually, because the last time was just a financial crisis, but this one could be a financial crisis. Some countries are severely hit already, and industries, but it's also a crisis in terms about how we we actually travel and form relationships and meet people and do business. So it can be much harder this time. But it's not easy. But it doesn't go away. And I also think I understand from a logical point of view, when you're under pressure, you try to go back to what have been a success last time. But a lot has happened in the last 10 years. What helped you through the last financial crisis is not necessarily the same that will help you through this one.
I would say a lot has happened in the last 8 months. So for me, it's like, it looks like a year that I don't know what happened here in this year. Like, we're almost in December, so it's that year, and many companies are trying to really understand what's going on. So how is everything changing within the company and outside the company? It's like all over, which is like, wow.
In the beginning of March, I've never heard about Zoom or Mario or Mural or these things. Now I use them all the time. It's never heard of them a year ago or 9 months ago. Never heard.
Yeah, I had. I think my first guest even is from Mural, and he said that right now they're flourishing. I'm happy for them that they're flourishing. It's really great to know. So we talked about these changes that they need to do, which because they are so big and bureaucracy is everything. So how can they do this change and even fast right now? It was hard for them to do it slowly, but now they need to do it even faster.
Now you need to do it even faster. Yeah, I think it really, again, it starts with the senior leadership team. They really need, for innovation to succeed, it has to be that important for the senior management team that if they do not succeed with this innovation, they will be in trouble. Because if it's not life or death for them, pretty much, they will not prioritize it. They'll do other things. So as corporate innovators, we also have a big challenge ahead of us in order to bridge the gap between the innovation agenda and the strategic agenda in companies. And it really needs to be that important, and the senior leadership teams must also invest their personal time in this. It doesn't necessarily, if you're 1,000 people or 10,000 people, you don't necessarily need to say, okay, now we need all 10,000 to be creative and innovative, but you need to design and allow for small teams. Get close to the customers, work autonomously instead of that. That's what they can do as pilots and small experiments, and as we go, try to scale it to more parts of the innovation. So now they need to experiment with new products and new business model, but they certainly also need to experiment with new ways of working. And it would have been nice if they have done a bit of practice before.
Nice for them, for sure.
That would have helped them. So again, I think they should start designing some clear visions about going back to the basis. We've seen some companies working. What is this actually our company is about? What is the value proposition? What is the things we actually want to do for our customers? And then forget a bit about the products and the business model and the services and say, okay, are there other ways of doing that? Again, it's in hindsight. I know that's easy. If you are a business airline, you bring people together so they can do business. Well, Zoom does exactly the same. But too many big companies, their identity is probably too caught up in the products they are making. When we hear about big companies doing presentations about themselves, they talk about production sites. How many tons of packaging in an hour can they produce, etc., etc. It's not really interesting for that many people. It's about why they're doing it. And then try to figure out some innovation themes and some innovation arenas where we see, okay, this is a big problem. We need to fix that. We don't have the answers, but we need to allocate some funds and some new ways of working, and then see what we can come up with. Yeah. Basically, where there's value at stake.
I think that what you said about this is the problem. We don't have the funds, but we might have the funds. But what I think about is you have so many advantages over small companies or in startups. You have connections in your industry, you have suppliers, you have connection with your clients, you know so much about what's going on, and sometimes you really have the money, although if you're in crisis you have less. So you have so many advantages and you need to use them in order to do things differently. And not only the way that you've done it till now, or maybe in some cases even not at all. So it's really important.
And, so we are back to the bureaucracy again here, aren't we? In a way, where they have all the things going for them, except the vision, except the passion, except the ways of working. We work with some behavioral experts, and they say that as humans we have two systems: system 1 and 2. System 1 is the things that's relatively easy for us, things we do without too much thinking. I need to book a sales meeting, we need to do another campaign, we need to do a facelift. That's things we have processes and systems for. And then there's system 2. These are the things that are more difficult, where we need to be creative, find new ways. And in a bureaucracy and in a big organization, if you have an idea, wow, I think this could be a great idea, I need to, who should I pitch it to? Don't know. Then you find a manager you can pitch it to. Should we do it? No, we need to speak to my boss as well, and the boss's boss, and the boss's boss's boss, and all that. And when we all agree it's a good idea, okay, now we need to fund it. How do we fund it? I don't know. And then it starts. It's everything is basically a system 2, or many things is when we come in talk about innovation in large companies. And again, it's back to the behaviors and the habits and what we consider being right and wrong and what we have designed the organization for. I think it was, I heard an interview not long ago with Gary Hamel, and he even said that it's actually, many times it's easier for a woman in Bangladesh to get a microloan for $1,000 than it is for a PhD in corporate America to get $1,000 for an experiment. And it's down to bureaucracy. And it's
it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. What you said about passion is really important, because we built these organizations this way. Even people are very creative and passionate and really want to do things, because maybe it's boring for them to do the same thing, and they want challenges, and they have great ideas. They could not work for sure for a long time in these organizations. So they decide to go outside and to be entrepreneurs and to do something in a smaller company sometimes, because they have more impact and they could do things. And instead of these big companies utilizing these people, and they have this, if you have 10,000 people, you probably have some of them like that. And instead of giving them the option to do better things and to take you to the future, you oppress them because they cannot do it. Actually, you don't have the systems in order to do that, and it's really sad to think about. Like, when you imagine, let's say that you're an airline, or we always talk about airline. Let's talk about entertainment. Okay, you're in the entertainment industry and you have 5,000 people in your company. And you know that you need to change. It's clearly not going to work as it worked in the past. Okay, so you'll not have big concerts, you'll not have like huge events as in the past. So what could you do? And because these 5 people are getting salaries, and no matter what happens, they will get a salary. Sometimes they'll be deducted because they don't have money. But the fact is that you're running out of cash. So instead of taking these people and telling them, okay, now we need to do something different and have the mechanism to do so, you will go bankrupt and all of them will get fired.
Yeah, that was actually back in 2012, I think it was, when Kodak filed for Chapter 11. Like, up until the end, people were being promoted and paid bonuses for doing a good job. And they did what they were paid to do, good. And I'm sure they were brilliant people, but they were just doing the wrong things, and it didn't help them. And we see it again and again and again. And we also see that in big companies, and there are also small companies who find this difficult, and there are also big companies who's doing a brilliant job innovating. But we're talking general terms. But it's when you consider people, they get paid to do a job, but we don't trust them enough that if they have a assumption that this could be a way or an idea, we don't trust them enough to explore it. We need to find a person far, far away from the customers to validate whether the assumption is right. And it takes more time and it's more expensive instead of just doing a small experiment with a very, very limited customer group. And then when it's 5:00, they leave work, they go into a community, they may be volunteers in the local soccer club or whatever, and they have no money, they are not being paid, and they do the most extraordinary things.
Right.
And it's really, it's amazing. And if we could have that commitment in companies and hunger and curiosity and all that, it would be a lot could happen.
Sure. It's like you have the talents, but they are not utilized. It's like sometimes you don't have the talent. Sometimes most of your organizations are people who would like to come at 9 and work till 5 and leave, and that's it. And it's okay. You need people who are persistent and who are doing their job exactly, and it's fine. But you need a percentage, and I would say it's not a small percentage right now, of people that could do things differently and take you to your future and not only hold you in this position. Because as you can see, it's for me to think that the companies in the past, they were like 60 or 65 years old, and now they're almost 17 in on average. The 17 years old a company, then it goes down. For me to say, okay, so big companies, it's like it's their time, they could go, and then smaller companies would come.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, they shouldn't go because they have so many talents and skills and knowledge. They just need to use it differently.
And we really need them because we need jobs, we need hospitals, we need all that. So we really depend on these big companies.
Yeah, and we need persistent jobs, which is not risky. Because smaller companies are more risky for the employees. Sometimes.
But even though we have the big techs and they do tremendous things and they hire lots of people, but when you look at it on a global scale, it's really not that many people who works there compared to the car industry.
Yeah, of course.
So we really need them to and help them to solve this problem, and the industry you and I are in at it, we also have a job to be done there. So how can we actually get our messages across?
That's a good question.
And that's one of the challenges we have to work with. And it is. And when we look at it, if you look at in the beginning of the year, right now, the 10 or 20 biggest companies in the world, and look at the same list 20 years ago, it's pretty much. I think 15 out of 20 have swapped. It's and
the fact that the big tech companies are getting bigger and bigger, it's something that it makes sense because they're doing things really well and they're innovating all the time and getting more products and more new services out there. But on the other hand, it means that they are monopolizing the market, and you cannot really go after, like doing any kind of e-commerce without really relating to Amazon, for example, and so forth. It's really, really hard. So it means that the smaller companies, they don't need to be like very, very small, smaller than 600,000 people in Amazon. The smaller companies, they're really struggling. So we need the variety of companies as a society in order to get more services and to get more products out there, which are good for us as clients and customers, right?
Yeah, and I think they should go back to when they were children. As they should have dreams. What is it what is the difference they want to do in the world? There's a lot of, back to my book from my MBA, and there's a lot about burning platforms, and that's basically about do something when you face a problem. I think maybe we should go back to, and we should convince companies that it's burning platforms are okay because we need to act on them, but burning ambitions are so much stronger. Really, and that's also from a change and cultural point of view, that's an easier sell, because when we are on burning platform, we know it's probably headcounts and cost savings and all that. When it's burning ambition, we are not avoiding things, we are achieving things, and I think really we need to work on that. So we should have business dreams. Again, after the World War II in Germany, they had all this Wirtschaftswunder about they need to reinvent the entire country, and they did, and maybe the industrial age are facing the same challenge now on the back of COVID-19. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree to what you're saying, that we need to think about the personal motivations and what people want to do in the world. You can see it in many cases, like in big tech companies. Their employees are thinking, am I working for a good company? Do I want to take my talents and skills into this aim? Am I doing the right thing? Which is so important today. And you see that the way that people see and perceive the world is changing, and therefore it's really going to different direction. And the question is, what companies could really grasp that and seize this opportunity as something to grow with? And I think this is what's like, what do they need to handle right now? It's like there are so many opportunities right now, because everything is changing. You need to catch these like changes in mindsets, changes in behaviors, and just fill this gap of unfulfilled needs, actually. So this is what we need to do. But
this is when times are changing. Legacy systems and bureaucracy sees when times are changing, it's a problem. Innovative companies see it's an opportunity. And I think that's the mindset they should. I'm sure for Zoom, I think they have a combined market value that's twice the value of the 6 or 7 biggest airlines in the world right now. I know nobody could have predicted the COVID-19. Sure. There's a lot of coincidence in that, but nevertheless, they were ready to scale when the opportunity was there.
Right. So I want to thank you. We're almost done. So I want to ask you, if people want to reach out and hear more on you and contact you, where should they go?
They can go to our website. It's bluetrampoline.com. They can look me up on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. I'm pretty open and approachable, and I have an email as well, hk@bluetrampoline.com, if people want to hear more about it. If we have time for it, we actually have, now we talked about what goes wrong, but we also have a pretty good case. It's a travel agency we work with during this pandemic, and they are challenged, to say the least, as well. And we were approached by a travel agent back in March, in the start of the pandemic, who said, "Okay, this is really done now. Our business model is disrupted. What can we do?" And instead of doing the traditional, well, how can we cut costs? How can we do this and this? We took an explorative approach and say we created some hypothesis. I say, what if we could, or we believe we could sell some kind of value proposition to customers domestically instead of, so they shouldn't travel. In the beginning, they didn't really believe that, but I say, let's do the first small experiment. Let's engage with the customer list they already had in the CM system. And a long story short, one experiment at a time, in 5 weeks, this travel agency actually managed to change the entire program for the summer, for international destination to domestic destinations, with a slightly different product market mix and another business model. And they are actually now in index 153 compared to last year. So they are actually growing by 50% this year compared to last year.
Wow.
Because of a strong innovation culture. And it's probably the only travel agency in the world who's doing that right now.
Yeah.
So
it's a good story.
It can be very fast as well. It's
yeah, I totally agree. It's a good story what you said. Like, in general, I think we need more good stories right now, and the stories about companies who decided to seize these opportunities out there and go and do something different.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for your time, Henrik. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Talk to you later.
Thank you very much.
Thank
sure.
You.
And to all of you changemaker out there, thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm Mazor Kario, and you've been listening to the Invincible Innovation Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, invincibleinnovation.com, where you can learn more about our programs and my book, Innovating Through Chaos. I'll be waiting for you next week in our next episode. Thank you for listening.